because the other thing before cities, of course, were markets, where you had a charter. If your town had a charter to hold a market, that was in the Middle Ages. That was considered to be quite a great thing as well. But you're right, and I think shortly before last year, to celebrate the platinum jubilee of the Queen, the late Queen, she made a number of new cities, including places like Southend, which is sort of the seaside for EastEnders. Gibraltar became a city last year.
Yeah, Gibraltar is also a very curious case because it's one of these cities that are either British overseas territory or that they are slightly separate from the normal British order, so to say, but we still have to take them into consideration.
Yes, indeed. Well, yes, I mean, Gibraltar's rather more closely linked than some of the other overseas territories. I mean, I always assumed it was a city, I mean, quite a small city, but it was officially a city as from last year.
Yes. There are also other new cities that I believe also gained city rights. I'm not sure if it was last year or 2021, but a city such as Milton Keynes, for example, which had grown quite large.
Yes, well, Milton Keynes was one of a number of, they were established after the Second World War, new towns where they took a couple of villages and created, the idea was that, of course, people would have a better environment after they were rebuilding, the reconstruction of the bomb damage of the Second World War. The idea was to move people away from some of the bombed out urban areas and create these new green, this whole concept of the garden city.
Yes.
Welland Garden City, just north of London, was a good example. Milton Keynes, a completely new city, famous for the large number of roundabouts. I must confess, I've never been to Milton Keynes. But at one point it was famous for the number of roundabouts and a number of concrete cows which they put in fields as well. But yes, and of course nowadays a city tends to have a bishop, a cathedral obviously. I think there's a population requirement of about 300,000 to be a city these days.
Yes, and I believe that initially there was a list that was passed on by British clerics in the so-called Dark Ages after the Romans had withdrawn from Britain, and there was not yet this really modern state and modern state administration, and it was quite a lot of it was in the hands of the church at the time. There was a list, I'm not sure, I think it was 27 Roman cities, so to say, that they weren't given their city rights, but rather it was just stated that these cities have been cities in memoriam, I believe, or so.
That's right, yes.
That they predate any written records that we have of our own. We just know that they had Roman city walls, and people have simply lived there for longer than any of us can remember. And then later on, there weren't any new cities that were given city rights up until either the 19th century or even the early 20th. No, it must have been the 19th century when, as you mentioned, that the Industrial Revolution brought about this magnificent growth of new large cities, especially in northern England. So it's quite fascinating. Another thing that separates a little bit the Polish and the British case here is that if we look at our population and how it's dispersed, you have Poland, a state of almost 40 million people, and the capital city has officially, of course there is probably many more that live in Warsaw, but have chosen for some reason to not have their official residency here. 1.7, 1.8 million people. London, of course, is this metropolis that houses a much larger percentage of the British population than Warsaw houses of the Polish. So there is slightly more of this centralization, you could say, in the UK, where the capital city plays a much more important role than Warsaw does.
You're absolutely right. London certainly is the biggest. Then you have Birmingham, and then the whole West Midlands conurbation, all the towns dotted around Birmingham. Then you have, I think Sheffield is next, followed by Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Newcastle.
Yeah.
And all of those are as a result of industrialization, and each became very specialized in.
And many of them are around 1 million or so, and then London, of course,
8 million, 8, 9. I mean, who knows? 8 or 9 million. Seems to get bigger all the time.
Growing by the year.
Growing, and of course, the interesting about London is most of what we call London is technically the city of Westminster, because the city of London, which people call about the city, the financial district as it mainly is of course the old Roman city of London. And there is a border which on Fleet Street between, at Temple Bar, funny enough, between the city of Westminster and the city of London.
Yes.
And the city of London have still retained some of the old civic administrative structures which were done away with by Ted Heath in the 1970s.
It's a very interesting construction. In some way, it could be compared to the Vatican City in Rome, that it has its quite separate characteristics and rights and traditions.
Adam, sorry, I'm just going to have to stop you there as usual. The clock has defeated us, but we'll pick it up next time. There we are. I've had to interrupt Adam almost in mid-sentence, but fear not, if you join us next time on Poland Daily History, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. Until then, thank you for watching.